Look at your left hand. If you are married, there is a ring on the fourth finger, and it has been sitting there so long, you have forgotten it is a choice. It is not. It is a Roman medical theory. In the 2nd century of the Common Era, a scholar named Aulus Gellius sat in a Roman library and recorded a belief already old in his time, that a single vein ran from the fourth finger of the left hand directly to the heart. He called it the vena amoris, the vein of love. Romans placed the wedding ring on that finger to seal the marriage at the closest point to the organ that mattered most. 2,000 years of anatomical science have since confirmed, without ambiguity, that no such vein exists. Every finger has roughly the same venous structure. The dedicated cardiac pathway is a fiction. But here you are, honoring it. Every married person you know is honoring it. Billions of rings on billions of fourth fingers, because a Roman who never dissected a human hand wrote down something that felt true. And that ring is only the beginning. You woke up this morning and checked your calendar, and that calendar is Roman. You drove past a courthouse whose columns are Roman. You shook someone's hand using a gesture Roman soldiers used to prove they were not reaching for a blade. You said, "Bless you," to a stranger who sneezed, and the reflex behind those words was formed in a world where people believed the soul could exit through the nostrils. You are living inside Roman habits, the way a hermit crab lives inside a borrowed shell, completely, unconsciously, and with no memory of who built the thing around you. What follows is a tour of the shell. Not the grand Roman legacies everyone already knows. Not the aqueducts, not the Colosseum, not the Republic and its senators. Something quieter, and, in its own way, more unsettling. The small rules, the daily customs. The reflex is so automatic, you have never once asked where they came from. The answer, again and again, is the same. Start with the calendar on your wall. Say the word September out loud. Now say it slowly. September. Septem. That is Latin for 7. September is the 9th month. It has been the 9th month for more than 2,100 years, and it has been the wrong number for every single one of them. The original Roman calendar, traditionally attributed to Romulus, began in March. Martius, the month of Mars, was month 1. That made September the 7th month, October the 8th, November the 9th, December the 10th. The math worked. Then, at some point in Rome's early centuries, tradition credits the king Numa Pompilius, January and February were added to the front of the year. Every month from September onward slid 2 positions forward. September became the 9th month. But no one changed the name. Here is where it gets truly Roman. In 46 BCE, Julius Caesar completely overhauled the calendar. He brought in Sosigenes, an Alexandrian astronomer, and together they rebuilt the entire system. New month lengths, a new leap year cycle, a complete structural reform. Caesar even renamed a month after himself. Quintilis became Julius, which became July. His successor Augustus did the same with Sextilis, which became August. They had the authority, the opportunity, and the precedent to rename September through December while they were at it. They could have made the numbers match. They did not. No Roman authority in the remaining 5 centuries of the empire bothered either. And when the calendar passed into the hands of the Catholic Church, and then into the hands of every Western government on earth, the error traveled with it. It is the 9th month. It is called the 7th. Everyone knows. Nobody fixes it. That is not carelessness. That is institutional inertia, and it is more powerful than any emperor. Now walk into a courtroom, any courtroom. Watch the judge enter. Black robes, somber fabric, the full-length garment that signals authority before a single word is spoken. That outfit has a specific origin, and the origin is not medieval England, though that is where most Americans assume it starts. In the late Roman Empire, magistrates and legal officials adopted a dark cloak, the panula, as their marker of judicial authority. The choice was deliberate. Military commanders wore armor. Civilians wore lighter colors. The magistrate in his dark garment was visually distinct from both. Neither soldier nor ordinary citizen, but something else. An officer of the law. When the Western Empire fragmented, the institution that preserved Roman civic ritual most faithfully was the church. Medieval ecclesiastical courts, run by clergy who were also the most literate class in Europe, dressed their judges in dark robes derived from monastic habits. Those monastic habits were themselves evolved from late Roman civilian dress. The chain is unbroken. English common law courts formalized black judicial robes in the 17th century. When the United States Supreme Court first convened in 1790, the justices wore robes modeled on English practice, an English practice modeled on medieval ecclesiastical courts. Ecclesiastical courts modeled on late Roman judicial dress. The person who handles your traffic violation is wearing a Roman magistrate's cloak. 14 centuries separate them. The garment barely changed. And while you are in that courtroom, notice something else. You are presumed innocent. That presumption, the principle that the burden of proof lies on the accuser, not the accused, is so fundamental to your legal system that you probably assume it was invented by the founding fathers, or perhaps by some Enlightenment philosopher in a powdered wig. It was not. The Roman jurist Paulus, writing around 200 CE, stated it plainly. The burden of proof lies upon the one who affirms, not the one who denies. 3 centuries later, Justinian's legal team codified that principle in the Digest, the massive compilation of Roman law completed in 533 CE. Medieval canon lawyers absorbed it through Gratian's Decretum around 1140. English common law inherited it from there. By the time the American founders enshrined it, the principle was already 13 centuries old and had passed through at least 4 distinct legal systems without losing its shape. Innocent until proven guilty is not an Enlightenment ideal. It is a Roman courtroom procedure. Step outside the courthouse, look at the building itself. Columns, a triangular pediment, perhaps a dome. You have seen this architecture so many times that it registers as simply what government looks like. But someone chose it, and we know exactly who. In 1785, Thomas Jefferson was in France, designing the Virginia state capitol by mail. He wrote to James Madison, describing his decision to model the building on the Maison Carrée, a Roman temple still standing in Nîmes, a building he considered one of the most beautiful surviving examples of Roman architecture. Jefferson was not making an aesthetic choice. He was making a political argument. A new republic needed the visual authority of the oldest republic he could point to. Roman columns said legitimacy. Roman proportions said permanence. The U.S., Capitol's dome and colonnade, every statehouse portico, every federal courthouse with a row of pillars. These are not coincidences. They are citations. Vitruvius, writing in the 1st century BCE, codified the rules. Doric columns for buildings dedicated to strength, Corinthian for elegance, Ionic for balance. He prescribed that the dignity of a building must match its purpose. Jefferson read Vitruvius. Every architect who built a Western government building for the next 2 centuries read Vitruvius. The Roman architect has been dead for 2,000 years. His style sheet is still in use. Now consider something you do without thinking, probably several times a week. You extend your right hand to a stranger, open and empty, and you grip theirs. The handshake. Roman funerary reliefs and coins are full of this image. The dextrarum iunctio, the joining of right hands, depicted as a symbol of concordia, of harmony, of fides, which is the Roman word for good faith, and also the root of the English word fidelity. The gesture predates Rome. Homer describes Greeks doing it, but Rome formalized it. In Roman legal practice, the handshake was part of the stipulatio, the verbal contract. The physical joining of right hands sealed the spoken agreement. And the reason it was the right hand specifically is grimly practical. That was the weapon hand. Extending it open meant you were not holding a sword. The gesture passed through medieval feudal culture, where the vassal placed his hands within the lord's hands in an oath of loyalty. It passed through early modern diplomacy. It passed into every job interview and business meeting and casual introduction you have ever experienced. You extend your weapon hand empty to show peaceful intent. You have never once thought about swords. The reason is gone. The gesture is immortal. Here is one that will follow you to your next wedding, or to the memory of your own. The bride and groom exit the church. Someone throws rice. The custom feels wholesome, vaguely symbolic, the kind of thing people do because people have always done it. Roman weddings included the throwing of grain, spelt usually, or nuts, at the couple as they emerged. The ritual was explicitly a fertility symbol. The bride wore a flame-colored veil called a flammeum, orange-red, not white. Guests threw what they had. The grain varied by region and season. The transmission from ancient spelt to modern rice is not perfectly documented, but medieval European wedding records show grain throwing across multiple regions, and the continuity is more plausible than independent reinvention. What changed is the grain, not the gesture. And if you want to know how deep the automation runs, consider the bride being carried over the threshold. Plutarch, writing in the 1st century of the Common Era, tried to explain why Romans did this. He offered 3 theories. It recalled the abduction of the Sabine women, when Rome's founders literally carried off their neighbors' daughters to be wives. Or it prevented the bad omen of the bride stumbling on the doorsill. Or it symbolized the bride's reluctance to leave her father's house. He listed all 3. He picked none. Even in ancient Rome, people were performing traditions they could not explain. Plutarch essentially shrugged. 2,000 years later, grooms are still lifting brides over thresholds. Nobody remembers why. Nobody asks. Let me take you somewhere unexpected. Think about the most controversial legal concept in modern American politics. The idea that a corporation is a person, that a company can own property, enter contracts, sue and be sued, claim certain constitutional rights. This concept has reshaped elections, taxation, and the structure of the global economy. Its origin is a Roman burial club. Roman law developed the concept of the universitas, a collective body with legal standing independent of its individual members. The Digest of Justinian codified the rules. These were not designed for vast commercial enterprises. They were designed for collegia, small associations of craftsmen and tradespeople who pooled their money so they could afford to bury their dead with dignity. Roman jurists gave these little clubs the ability to hold property, make contracts, and appear in court as a single legal entity. That legal fiction, the group as a person, traveled through medieval canon law, where the church became the first great corporation in the Western world. It traveled through English common law. It arrived in American jurisprudence, still wearing its Roman architecture. The most powerful legal fiction of modern capitalism was invented to help gravediggers split the cost of a funeral. Now, check your phone. What day is it? If it is Saturday, you are living in Saturn's day. Dies Saturni. Sunday is the sun's day, dies Solis. Monday is the moon's day, dies Luni. The 7-day week, with each day assigned to a planetary deity, was explained by Cassius Dio in the 3rd century CE. He described it as an Egyptian system that Romans adopted and spread across the empire until, in his words, it prevailed everywhere. The Romance languages barely bothered to disguise the Latin: lunus, mart, mercole, wave, vierne. English swapped some Roman gods for Norse ones: Tuesday for Tyr, Wednesday for Woden, Thursday for Thor, Friday for Frigg, but kept the planetary structure and 3 of the original names. You schedule your life on a Roman astrological chart. Your phone just formats it with better fonts. And then there is the smallest habit. Someone near you sneezes. You say, "Bless you." You do not think about it. You certainly do not think about Roman pneumatology. But Pliny the Elder, writing in the 1st century CE, noted that even the Emperor Tiberius, the most austere ruler of his age, a man who found almost all social ritual contemptible, insisted on receiving a salutation after sneezing, even while riding in his chariot. The Roman custom was rooted in a genuine fear that the violent exhalation of a sneeze left the body momentarily vulnerable, that something essential might escape or something malign might enter. The words changed. The Latin salve became a Christian blessing. The fear of escaping souls became a vague politeness, but the reflex, the automatic verbal response to another person's involuntary exhalation, has not missed a generation in 2 millennia. What holds all of this together is not Rome's genius. It is something more mundane and more powerful: institutional conservatism. Rome built things: legal systems, calendars, civic rituals, administrative practices, and then handed them to the Catholic Church, which was the most durable institution in Western history. The Church preserved Roman forms the way amber preserves insects, perfectly, without understanding, and for far longer than anyone intended. Medieval courts used Roman law because medieval jurists, beginning at Bologna, around 1070, after the rediscovery of Justinian's Digest, genuinely believed Roman law was superior to their own local customs. This was not organic cultural drift. It was a deliberate choice made by specific scholars in specific universities over specific centuries. But here is what should unsettle you. These customs survived not because the original reasons were good. The Vena Amoris is fiction. The calendar numbering is wrong. The sneeze blessing is superstition. The handshake's martial logic is obsolete. The bride carrying was already unexplainable in Plutarch's time. These practices persisted because institutions do not ask why. They ask how it was done before. And Rome, more than any civilization before or since, built systems designed to answer that question. The mos maiorum, the custom of the ancestors, was not nostalgia in Rome. It was policy. Roman priests checked rituals against precedent. Roman magistrates cited ancestral practice as legal authority. Rome was the first civilization to make tradition into a technology of governance. The technology worked. It is still working. The marriage license in your filing cabinet is a Roman legal instrument. The judge who could dissolve that marriage wears a Roman garment. The building where the dissolution would be filed has Roman columns. The calendar date, stamped on every document, follows a Roman system designed by an Egyptian astronomer on a Roman dictator's orders. The principle that would protect you if you were accused of a crime was written down by a Roman jurist named Paulus 18 centuries ago. You did not choose any of this. No one alive chose any of this. These are not traditions in the warm sense, things handed down with love and explanation. These are habits, grooves worn so deep into the infrastructure of Western life that the original surface is invisible. The Romans who made these choices are dust. The reasons they had are mostly wrong or forgotten or both. But the choices themselves are everywhere, woven into the first ordinary day you can imagine. Tomorrow morning, you will check the date on a Roman calendar. You will shake hands with the weapon hand you do not carry. If someone sneezes, you will recite a Roman blessing stripped of its Roman theology. And if you are married, you will glance down at your left hand at the fourth finger, where a ring sits over a vein that was never there. The empire fell. The habits did not. If you have something Rome left in your daily life that we did not cover, name it in the comments. The survivals are more numerous than any single telling can hold. And if you want to understand the machine that built these habits, that laid the roads and wrote the laws and somehow made the world run on its calendar and its customs for 2,000 years after its last emperor was deposed, there is more ahead. The Roman machine has many gears. We will keep opening it.